think it's good. It's transparent as it can be, I suppose. So we heard today that no lifting of lockdown anytime soon at all. And it seems to me sensible, given the focus on this so-called R number and the declining, consistent decline of people dying, which has started. So the trend seems to be clearly there. So I think this is setting us up, I think, for news that there's not going to be a lifting of things, probably for some weeks, maybe even the end of May, it could be.
We're through the end of May.
Is that you're definite?
We're definite. We're sheltering in place through the end of May, although they are allowing construction to start up again, which is very exciting. We're admitting Kristen Brandt to the call for the first time. Hi, Kristen. Oh, she's still connecting to audio. And I am recording, by the way.
Yes, I see the red warning light up here, so I will be very, very careful what I say, Shel.
So Kristen,
as careful as I always am.
She's muted, actually. Kristen,
not anymore.
Yeah. Oh, now she's there.
Hi, Kristen.
Hello.
Great to see you.
I was on a call. I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go chat with people. Hello.
How are you?
I'm hanging in there, you know.
Yeah.
Trying to stay busy and keep my kids from murdering each other. I don't know.
My 4-year-old granddaughter is in the house with us all this time. My son and his wife and my granddaughter live with us, so
okay,
that keeps things interesting. They're out in a little portable swimming pool right now. The kind you blow up with a pump.
Oh, where are you?
I'm in Concord, California.
Oh,
San Francisco East Bay. Yeah.
There you go. Boston, Massachusetts. We are not swimming.
No, I've heard.
And I'm north of you in New Hampshire, so.
Oh, hi.
Even colder up here.
Exactly.
I'm across the Atlantic, quite a way away from you, but hello, Kristen. Welcome to the podcast.
And
hello, Neville.
Bill Spaniel is joining.
So I've not seen my grandkids since February, by the way, in contrast to you guys. Other than every other day video calls on Zoom or WhatsApp. Not the same thing, though.
I have a granddaughter in San Diego that I haven't seen since last July. You would think, just San Diego, it's not that far. But we were supposed to go down about 3 weeks ago, but that didn't happen.
Right.
And I don't have any grandkids that I'm aware of, so.
Nice one.
And your son still lives with you, right?
But both of my boys, they still live with me. One's 18, senior in high school, and the other one is a freshman in high school.
Oh, we're right there with you. I have a freshman, daughter is a freshman, and our son is a junior, would have been a senior, but we held him back in kindergarten. So how is your senior handling all this?
It's not easy. I do think, and not just because I have one, but I think seniors in high school are probably the kids who are getting it the toughest right now. Even seniors in college, unless you're an athlete, I think most of them were just sort of trying to figure out jobs anyway. And yes, they're in bad shape there, but senior year of high school, there are all sorts of milestones that you tend to go through that they're going to miss out on, and they have no idea what's going on with college in the fall.
Here's Johnny. Welcome back, Johnny.
Hi, Johnny. How are things in Brazil?
After the most recent outrageous thing happening all over the country, still working on really how we're going to work through all this. So.
Yep. Where in Brazil are you?
I'm in São Paulo.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. It's the most affected city, but at least our governor is trying to do something.
Yeah. No, I love Sao Paulo. As you know, I used to come down there I think it was every August for 4 or 5 years with a berger.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed the city. I don't know if you knew James Heffernan.
No.
He worked, he passed away a few years ago, but he worked for a berger. He set up that whole certificate program. And I got stuck there once. There was a hurricane in the U.S. My flight was canceled. And it was going to be 3 days before I got home. And he just took me under his wing. He toured me around. We went to some great restaurants. We hung out at his place, did some nightlife. So I got to see even more of Sao Paulo then than I usually did.
Everything's closed now, so not a lot to see. Well,
Where did... I keep admitting Shel Israel, and when I do, he vanishes.
What?
Well, Shel's a
God.
shrinking
There he
violet,
is.
so he's
There
probably
he
there.
is.
We just can't hear him.
He's
These
coming.
names I haven't heard in so long.
There he is. Hey, Shel.
Hey, Shel.
Hello.
he's listening.
He needs to figure out his
The
audio.
sound. Yep.
I'm going to keep muting you as I eat my lunch. Nobody needs to hear that.
And Sally Getch is joining us.
Rhymes with sketch.
It does.
This is like old home day.
Yes.
It
It
is.
is, isn't it?
Hey, Chip. Hey, Neville.
How are we
Hey,
doing?
Shel.
Sally.
Hi, Sally.
Well, I'm here and conscious today. This is an improvement over last week.
Hey, other Shel, we can't hear you when you're talking, so.
Yeah, Shel number one, the older Shel. We can't hear you.
Really?
Oh, now we
There
can.
you go.
just barely.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sadly, yes.
If you try to sell me a Sprint phone, I'm going to bounce you out of here.
So we have another one, Alicia. Hiya.
Yeah, hi, my name's Alicia Johnson. This is my first time joining one of these, and
Cool.
I work with a small nonprofit in DC, and we're dealing with this like everybody is. So
Excellent.
trying to figure out what we do as it's happening.
Yep, indeed. Are you a listener, by the way?
I am.
Oh, great.
I
Cool.
love this
Excellent.
show. Yeah, so this is
Always love meeting our listeners for the first time. So give it another couple minutes. We'll just do some idle chat while we see who else joins us. I know I had a few other requests recently, and we have some regulars. Tom Murphy was planning on joining us today again.
So let me ask Alicia a question. You said you work for a nonprofit in Washington. Which nonprofit do you work for?
So we're the Shelby Coalition, and that
Okay.
stands for Schools, Health, and Libraries Broadband Coalition. So our whole reason for existence is that we are promoting broadband access for those who don't have it, particularly for
This
anchor
is a
institutions.
time when you met her for sure.
Exactly. This has been, I know it's funny. I have my problems involve just mainly too many reporters wanting to talk to us, which is a problem I never thought I'd have. People are actually interested in listening to us now because now that nobody can leave their homes, everybody's understanding how important broadband is. And so, yeah, it's really been a unique situation.
Yeah, I think I've seen the phrase digital divide more in the last month than I have in the last couple of years.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, our local school system is basically loaning out laptops to families that don't have them and that kind of thing. But I have a friend who's in Missouri, and she said basically they just said, yeah, no more school for the rest of the year.
I heard that there were some California school districts that were headed that
your
way.
grades now are going to be your grades for the end of the year because
That's happening here in the UK. Similar, Sally. The what do you call it? The folks who run the school systems here are averaging out people's achievements, and that is going to be the basis for the grades they're being given. And it's, as you can imagine, not very popular idea. Some people say, can we kind of cancel the year?
It's really
and
popular
start
with
over?
the kids
Yeah.
who were doing well at this point, and much less with the ones who were hoping to catch up.
Exactly.
You know, it's interesting. Yeah. So we have a junior in high school, and they just went to pass fail for the second half of the year. And I thought he'd be thrilled. Like, I was like, great, pass fail. And he said, but Mom, this was his year, like his year to get those grades up. He had been working really hard. He had done really well. He's like, what does that do? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what that does. So in fact, I'm interviewing someone on Friday who's a guidance counselor just about this, like just to, what should we, short of hyperventilating, what now, what do I do? Because SATs were canceled, so he didn't get to take those. Academically,
it's my
who knows?
nephew's senior year in college.
On the business side, it's a great time for learning and training. We just ran an article on our intranet that all of the safety training that employees usually have to pay for are heavily discounted right now. You know, so
use your time.
That's right. You're stuck at home.
Oh yeah.
Go get that
People are
OSHA.
much more safe nowadays than they ever were in their entire lives, basically.
Oh, I thought most accidents happened at home.
Well, I'm sure there are lots of accidents happening at home, but that say the emergency rooms are seeing a lot fewer car accidents at the moment.
Hey, did anyone see the news story today that in Ad Age, just the headline, branded face masks hit the market?
Well, I've seen all kinds of fashion face masks, so I would assume
big brands. It's a marketing. I mean, it's inevitable, is it not? I mean, we bought at home here a handful of designer kind of masks, actually from Etsy.
Yes, I've got a bunch on the way.
People. They're really fabulous. But I'm seeing this article in Ad Age, and you think of the brand, and there's a face mask for it you can now get. But that's surely no surprise, right? Surely no surprise.
I've been getting pitched the Grateful Dead logoed face masks for a couple of weeks now, so it only makes sense that the brands would follow.
Did you buy one?
No, my daughter-in-law's making face masks. She's probably made 150 of them. She donates one for every 2 she sells. So she's busy up there. I mean, she has a degree in costume design, so she's thoroughly qualified to do this kind of stuff.
Oh yes, I bet she could make really cool masks. Although if you want to make them fast, you're going to keep it simple.
We've got shipments of fabric showing up every day.
Yeah.
So.
I use old Hanes T-shirts.
There you go.
First was the spread of the customized Zoom backgrounds. Now is the spread of the customized and branded.
That's right. I was just downloading some Zoom backgrounds from National Geographic yesterday.
There's some nice ones, very nice.
But there are some lovely ones. I mean, what I'd kind of like to do is be able to use some of the photos I've taken of the area that I live in. Yeah. And I just got a green screen, and I was too tired to reshuffle my posters.
I like your poster for Leamington Spa there.
Well, yes. Great. I mean, I'm quite attached to that poster. I lived there. I lived there for 4 years.
Yeah.
And this was a railway poster at the time, and I remember talking to them in the Marylebone station and saying, can I buy one of those? And they were like, well, we don't have them for sale, but give me your address, and when the marketing campaign is over, we'll send you one. And it actually arrived on my birthday, which was perfect.
Excellent. Yeah. So the virtual background I've got, it is a virtual background, by the way. It's not my fancy apartment.
Yes, I guessed that. You can still
it's actually from Vogue magazine.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. They have some fancy stuff, coffee table type backgrounds. So
is Laura suggesting that she should have a kitchen like that for real, or
she's got some fun stuff on her computer actually. So, but this is what I call aspirational apartment number 2, because I got 4 others like this, of different kind of apartments. They're fun things. Videos are the next thing, by the way. I got some great videos that look totally incredibly real.
We were doing an HR team meeting on Zoom, and one of our folks, it looked like she was in her living room, and some guy popped out from behind a wall and went like this, just waving, and then behind the wall, and somebody said, is somebody with you in your apartment? And she goes, no, this is just a video. And every 10 seconds he popped out and waved.
Yeah, I mean, I have some video backgrounds that are just like, waves coming into the shore.
Yeah.
You don't want anything super distracting.
No.
I just learned that some students have gotten one that it looks like them sitting there. And so they're using that to make the teacher think that they are in class and paying attention when really they're, and I mean, give them an A for that ingenuity.
Oh yeah. I mean, the creativity is there, and trying to outsmart a teenager is.
I guess the real trick with that, Alicia, is that you can't see the join where the video replays. It looks totally seamless. That's the real trick. You can spot the joins, really.
Yeah,
so
but if you're watching
to do that,
if you're watching 20 students, though, that's going to be easy to miss.
It's just when you blink, so you synchronize it with that. That works.
There's no denying the ingenuity of students in their attempts to cheat. I remember we covered on FIR.
Yes, if they were only so ingenious in their attempts to succeed.
We covered on FIR how they were using Google Docs to pass notes in class.
So when all this is over and we go back to whatever we consider normal to be, which is a story unto itself, how will we have changed culturally, economically? How will marketing, fundraising, corporate communications, how's all this going to change?
Less than I think a lot of people
Huge question.
predict. Yeah. I think we have an amazing capacity to forget.
As a species, yes, we absolutely do. And there will be a lot of people who are, you can tell there are already a lot of people who are basically desperate to congregate as much as possible. I think that we will be left with an indelible, we can't pretend that it isn't possible to do remotely a number of things that we have now been doing remotely. Whether we will continue to do that, I think is going to be dependent on a lot of different things.
Well, I look at things like, and I don't want to get political, that's not my intent here, but you look at the big economic crisis of, what was it, 2008? Is that the one that led to Dodd-Frank? And
what show?
Dodd-Frank is legislation that was designed basically to prevent that kind of crisis.
I think it was 2000.
In the US you're talking about, yeah. Okay.
Yes, I think it was 2008.
Yeah, and within 5 years, it was all, let's relax those regulations. This hasn't happened in the last 5 years. We've forgotten how horrible that economic collapse was. So, whether you agree with the regulatory issue or not, that's not the point. The point is that after 5 years, everybody who was clamoring for legislation to keep that from happening was now saying, "Oh, it's such a burden. Let's go back to the way things were." I think
or
it'll be
everybody
kind
who
of the
was
same here.
clamoring for it to happen had been, different people in office. The people upon whom it imposed were always going to clamor.
So, what do you think is likely to be the case then, as a difference that some of the economic news that's been emerging in the last couple of days? Example, from the US, Ford Motor Company predicting, $6 billion loss. We've got Shell and BP, the oil companies, for the first time since the Second World War. They're not giving out dividends to shareholders. You've got today in the UK, one of the biggest banks, Lloyds Bank, announced a 95% drop in net profit. So are they all, that happened in 2008, and they got bailouts from the government. Yeah. I don't think that's likely this time, do you?
Yeah, American Airlines announced a $2 billion loss in the quarter.
It seems like no matter what happens, the banks make money.
Yeah, but I can't imagine that the political climate in the UK certainly is amenable to the government's bailing out the banks again.
Well, I just read this morning that savings rates are higher than they've been in a long, long time. People are hoarding cash, really? Which is not great for the economy, but the banks take interest off of savings.
The bank rate in this country is 0.01%. So savings, literally, you might as well just keep the money in a closet, or is close. Germany has started this. One bank, you pay the bank to look after your money. You get no interest. You get no interest on a savings account.
So I work in community banking. Yeah. So the agency, one of my hats, the agency, we work with community banks, which are different than the banks that are getting the bailouts. And it's true that it's going to be really interesting to me to see what happens with our savings rate, because if anything, we Americans have always been notoriously bad savers. That's always what they've said about us. And to see people, 4 weeks in say, I'm out of money. Yeah. That's it. I'm tapped, and is like, oh, that's what that means when we say our savings rate is notoriously bad. So I think it's a combination of, they've pulled it out of the stock market. We can talk about whether or not they should have done that.
And Bill spent a lot of time with the California CPA Association. I'm sure they talked about.
We had a campaign, they still do have a campaign for financial literacy. And but it's, you know, it's unfortunate that most people do not put away at least 6 months in that, you know, minimum.
Well, the kids and I have talked to, so I have 2 teenagers, and the kids and I have talked over the last, I know, 17 and 15.
Oh boy.
So where's my cocktail? No, and we've over the last year been really aggressive about talking to them about money and about how we spend our money and how someone might look like they have a lot because they spend a lot, but are they saving a lot? And I think this is the first time when this all started happening and they're seeing the layoffs, and I talked to them and I was like, look, we have X amount in the bank. They went, oh, that's what you mean when you say you chose to put it aside and not buy the new car, or that's what you mean. Like, I was like, there you go, we're there now.
There've been these kinds of revelations. My next door neighbors are both teachers, and as they were teaching their class over Zoom, one of them teaches history.
Yeah.
And his students were talking about how horrible this is. And he raised the point, you know, you realize you're living through history. This is going to be the topic of books that people will read in 100 years, like we read books now about the Spanish flu. And they go, oh, that's why we should pay attention to history.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I always say to my kids, you know, people are going to ask you, did you live through COVID? And then they're going to say, what'd you do? And I was like, what do you want that story to be, man? Yeah. Do you want it to be that you completed, you know, Grand Theft Auto, whatever, for the 5th time?
Yeah.
Or that you did something spectacular? I actually don't care if they learn math, like the homework stuff, I've kind of written off. Yeah. But my son just started Japanese.
So they didn't answer Grand Theft Auto, because that's what my kids probably would have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I was like, that's going to be a big piece of the answer. Let's be clear. Like, but you know, my daughter painted her. I'm basically letting them do anything. Like, color your hair, paint your room. So
just leave me alone, please.
Just like, just engage. Like, get out of bed, get off the couch. But it's history. Like, this is.
I go out for daily walks, and last night or last evening on my walk, I was behind a father with about a 6 or 7-year-old son walking along. I was socially distanced from them, but I could overhear their conversation, and the father was saying to his son, he says, I want you to remember this and what's going on, and that I go to work every day regardless of what's going on.
Yeah, me too. I keep thinking that this is going to be a great opportunity to do something, learn something, and then I'm working from 6:30 in the morning until
the only
7.
problem, right? I've given up on that.
I mean, it's the good news and the bad news. I have tons and tons of work.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm a web developer. This is the time when everybody needs stuff for their website.
Or needs a website.
Right. And my biggest client right now runs 3 senior centers in the Mid-Peninsula area, and they've had to shift all kinds of things online. And so there has been a ton of stuff to do. And I think they're doing a great job of it, but I'm tired.
Right. Well, they do say Americans are working 3 extra hours a day.
3 hours. Well, you don't have the commute, right?
Right.
So you get up, and at the time you would usually go out to the car, you're sitting down at your desk.
Right. I think the other thing that's so interesting about this is how much the blue collar workers are the ones that are really, they're essential. My husband is a bicycle mechanic. He is busier today than he has ever been. But if you had told me, and he used to be an environmental consultant, so he was a career changer, he absolutely would be furloughed now. And I'm like, but if you had told me when he decided to be a bike mechanic 7 years ago that would be the job that would keep him, I'd be like, you're crazy, like, bike shops are closing. What are you talking about?
And my son is a locksmith at the VA hospital in Martinez, California, part of the engineering department. That's essential work. I mean, he's up and out every morning.
So I think those are going to be some of the big changes, is maybe, hopefully we don't forget collectively how important those jobs have been, right? Like, that's, I think, going to be a huge...
I was reading one article, going back to Shel's question about what's going to change, about organizations that do experiential stuff. You know, create those experiences where people physically go out and participate. The millennials are supposed to be all about the experience, as opposed to acquisition of material goods, and saying that's going to change a lot, because this idea that you're shoulder to shoulder at some event isn't going to fly. People are going to be uncomfortable with that for a long time. You want to get them to show up. You're going to have to rethink the way you do experiences.
I think it depends on who you're targeting the experiences at, though, because I think there are a lot of communities that are, fairly highly tolerant of the risk. And so I think there are certainly groups of us who, will be more reluctant to be in those large scale events and have that human contact. But there are a lot of folks who say, heck with it. As soon as I'm allowed to do it, I'm going to do it.
Or people may aim more things at small family groups.
Wasn't there news about people, about beaches in California that were allowing people to go, and people just started gathering there, regardless of how things are over there right now?
Our governor just put the kibosh on that, because he's restricting access to beaches up and down California beginning tomorrow.
The TV news here was full of pictures, coverage of, I think, Florida or maybe Georgia, where it looked like, there were thousands of people on this beach. And it just looked crazy seeing that, I have to say. Shel, you mute?
You're muted,
I'm
Shel.
here.
No, the other Shel.
Oh, yeah, the other Shel.
Okay.
Yeah, the one with the hat.
Propeller.
You got to
propeller
unmute.
on your hat. Yep,
hit the unmute button.
Yeah,
There you go.
I have a sticky button. Photo of Florida, the beach, what was turned out to be from several years ago. And people in Lauderdale have said, yeah, the beaches are open, but what we saw in that picture was much denser than what actually was the case.
So as Mr. Trump would call it, it's fake news, right?
The Southern California picture of a few days ago at Newport Beach apparently was taken at Newport Beach a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So we in Northern California like to point out that we are morally superior to everybody.
Okay.
Nice one. Yeah.
I'm just trying to pull this article up about experiential.
It seems to me that 20-somethings. Sorry. I was just on the experiential experience. That doesn't make sense.
Sounds good. That sounds good.
It makes perfect sense. It's just slightly redundant.
Yeah, this is that. But it seems to me that a lot of people in their 20s have this I will never die attitude that I don't see it really going away. Just being in my 20s and among my friend groups, like they still seem to act like they're invincible, and the only thing preventing them from doing things like going to concerts is just that they can't, that there's no concerts. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually shifts in that specific age group, or if once they can, they all gather around shoulder to shoulder for their concert or experience.
I don't know. I think young people have always believed in their own immortality.
Well, I was going to say, I was watching those New York, when this first started and they had those pictures in New York City of all the the 20-somethings at the bar. My first job was in New York City. I lived in the city. I would have absolutely been one of them. I would have been like, it's fine. Let's go for a drink. So I think it's universal that in your 20s, you're a little bit of, a superhero. I do think the experiences, if they change, it's going to be not because the 20-somethings want them to change. It's because mandated wise, they have to change.
Well, this article
we can't put 50 people together. We can't.
This article goes into some detail on dimensions of this beyond just the desire of people to get out or their worries about being close. For example, if you have to travel to an event, what are the odds of your being able to, or being able to easily? Materials and production for people who put on these experiences. I'm thinking of BMW at Coachella, for example. Are they going to be able to import the stuff that they used to be able to import? So, I mean, this article is going into, they're looking at a number of angles of experience, not just are people going to want to? It's interesting. Yeah, we were talking about branded masks and branded Zoom backgrounds. It's good to see the brands getting creative with this. Has anybody seen the video that shows how all of the brands' TV commercials look alike?
Yeah, you shared it. I thought it was spectacular. How boring they were. The collective hug, as my friend
lack
said.
of creativity.
I'm
They're all
ready.
taking exactly the same approach.
Have you got a link to it, Shel?
Yeah, I can
Can you
find
pop it in
that.
the chat?
Where did I think I did that on Facebook, didn't I?
Put it in the chat.
Yeah.
No, I think it was on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, okay.
I think I commented on LinkedIn. No, it's true. And it's, as someone who's writing copy for radio spots and commercials, it's so hard to get away from that, to get away from the, we're all in this together. We're here for you.
Yeah.
I will say the car companies, if anyone works for a car company, I apologize, are making me nuts because they're like, we're here for you with 0% financing and we'll hold off on your payment for 3 months. And then if you need it, we'll do 3 more months. And I'm like, stop selling me things. You're either with me. Like I have a big read the room. Like, all right, everybody just read the room.
I think they have problems with tonality with some of the messaging, which is a hard thing to kick for some marketers. That's a fact. I got an email today exactly as you've described, Kristen, actually incidentally from the Ford Motor Company as it happened. Yeah. Telling me all this about the payment holidays, 0% financing, and by the way, we hope you stay home and stay safe and save lives. But we have a great deal for you. You know,
and I hope you still have a job. You're
right. Click here to get a personal contact from someone, even though the dealerships are closed. They're ready for you. I mean, geez. I mean, it was seriously tone deaf, I thought to myself.
There's a Lincoln commercial. I can try to find it, but it's a young woman. She's in a glass house in the woods, and they're talking about how she stays safe, and somebody drives up with her brand new Lincoln, and then I swear gets into another brand new Lincoln and drives it away. I was like, that's the one she's getting rid of. And at first my husband was like, maybe it's for service. And I was like, no, honey, I'm fairly sure that the nanny just picked up the new car for the owners. Like, I don't understand, you know, and it's a huge read the room moment.
So they're saying buy a car, but also stay home.
Right.
Because you
buy a car
and
keep it in the garage because you're not going anywhere.
Actually, going out for drives has been great. We did a 3-hour drive last weekend up to San Rafael and back. We went across the Bay Bridge and across the Golden Gate Bridge, over to San Rafael, then across the Richmond Bridge through Berkeley and back up. With the windows down.
And I bet there was no traffic.
There was no traffic, although there was an accident, so we slowed up at one point.
That'd be
but
nice
it was a great way to get out of the house and get some fresh air and see different things without.
It would be nice to do that, but here in the UK, and indeed most of the European countries, you're not allowed to do that.
Really?
Yeah,
because
you can only go out. You can only go out if it's an essential journey, like supermarket or pharmacy, or you have to go to work.
We never got out of the car, so we never exposed anybody to anything.
You shouldn't drive for longer than 30 minutes. And that's been part of the lockdown kind of sentiment, even to the extent which is a horrifying element to me. It's like you're breeding a whole society of gaulighters or something, where people will report you if they see you out on the road longer than they think you should be. You've got that kind of stuff starting, so it's not good. But
don't suspect a friend reporting.
Most people are actually observing this because the roads. I was out this morning on the weekly grocery run to the supermarket. And the roads were almost empty, although I did notice more cars than usual than I saw last week. Yeah. And this is all voluntary, but it's nationwide. And in fact, in places like France, notably, I think in Spain, I may be wrong, but definitely France, they'll fine you. And the cops will do that. And it's serious. So you'll get a fine, and it's in the hundreds, if not the thousands of euros. Here, you can get a fine, and if you pay it within 2 weeks, it's 50% off, all that kind of stuff. But most people aren't doing that, but some are. You hear stories of people doing like 120 miles an hour down the motorway because it's empty. Yeah. But the traffic cameras are still working. They get your license plate.
Right, I have seen that. We've heard that here too. That there's an uptick. So yes, like personal injuries and stuff like that. That's all down. Except they're seeing much bigger accidents on the highways as everyone is hitting them like it's the Autobahn.
Yeah, I heard that they've had a surge in tickets of people going over 100 on the freeways.
Well, what gets me, we go on drives like you do, Shel, every now and then. But what gets me is I see people wearing masks while they drive, and I think that's a traffic hazard.
Yeah.
We had somewhat, so we have, I don't know about you guys, every town I hear has like a Facebook group where people go to complain about stuff in town. And there were a bunch of people who are like, I mean, why are you wearing them in the cars? Blah, blah, blah. And then somebody else was like, well, I'm not supposed to touch it. And I got to stop at 3 places. So, and I was like, oh,
well, yeah, I put it on before I leave the house. And then I take it off before I come in.
Why are you wearing your mask?
Well, I'm going through these daily cancer radiation treatments. It just started on Monday for 5 weeks. And I found I was halfway home. I mean, this is no big deal, right? You just lie there for 15 minutes and feel nothing. But I was halfway home and I realized my mask was still on. I just forgot to take it off, even though I was alone in the car.
Yeah,
it's the new name badge. You leave a conference, you're wearing your name badge for 4 more hours.
Yeah, I work not too far from the Moscone Center when I'm working in the city, and walking back to BART, invariably you pass people who have their name badges on. And it's always fun to go, oh, hi, Mark.
So we haven't been doing the driving, although we did notice this weekend a lot of cars and motorcycles out, which was beautiful. But my daughter and I, who's 15, we do our grocery shopping once a week. And it's funny, the grocery store we're picking is further and further away. So we were going to the one in town. And then I was like, which one do you want to go to now? She's like, let's go to Wegmans. It's all the way in Northborough. I was like, great. So at least we could say, we're going to the grocery store.
My son-in-law volunteers to do our grocery shopping for us, and so because we're in that 65 and older category, so he goes out and does it, and invariably comes back with stuff that is not remotely like the stuff we asked for because he misinterprets everything that we sell.
Well, somebody said, a lot of their grocery stores only let one at a time.
Yeah, that's common here. You can only go one at a time here.
Yeah, we do allow 2, and I've been trying to balance the risk.
In the entire grocery store?
Like one person per cart. Oh, so like you can't bring a friend.
Two people can't go in together. And do you have to queue over there, Christy, or like here is the same? Yeah.
Yeah, it depends where you are and what they're doing. But yes, I've only been to Trader Joe's once since the lockdown because they let 10 people in the store at a time.
Yeah. And they're doing arrows, so you go the same way.
Yeah.
But I've been balancing, some people are like, I can't believe you're taking her out. Others, but she is, straight up going to turn into an agoraphobe if I don't get her out of this house at least once a week. Like that's, I'm trying to balance her mental well-being with her.
This is heaven for agoraphobes though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But when this first started happening, we had a hard time getting her out to the front yard. So, the grocery shop is like our chance. So I'm hoping they don't implement the one person thing because
another change after we get through this, getting back to Shel's question, I saw an article this week on CNET that I just pulled up. The headline says, YouTube says authoritative news viewership has jumped amid COVID-19 pandemic. I think this may lead people to want to follow authoritative news sites, people who may have been less inclined to do that before. What does it say here?
How are they defining that?
I'm
that
looking.
Would be nice.
I read the article, but I've read a lot of articles.
What does authoritative mean in this context?
Let's see. I'm scrolling through.
I just to interrupt briefly. I have to go, folks. I've reached my time limit. So nice to chat with you all, and thank you very much. And see you next time.
See you next week.
Good to see you.
Bye, Neville.
See you. Bye for now. Bye.
We have a news bulletin. Los Angeles County accounted for 63% of new cases day over day, topping its previous record.
Oh dear.
It ain't over yet.
No.
No, I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is just, people want an end point and are having problems understanding that there's not one. There's not a clear cut, this is over at.
Yeah. Here's the what they say. It's a 75% increase in people watching videos from, quote, authoritative sources such as legitimate news outlets, government agencies, and health authorities like the World Health Organization. They've declined to share specific viewership numbers.
Maybe it's about the viewership on official channels. Like, I've been watching the daily press briefings that my state government have been doing every day. So they've been alternating for like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We have a press conference from the governor about different plans. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, we always have some from the medical leadership, from our local leadership, about what is being done, how the number testings. I think people are viewing it. I can see I don't really interact with the chat, but the chat is always very active.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have to watch the, there's daily briefings from Governor Newsom. I think there are weekly briefings from Mayor Breed in San Francisco, but we have an external lobbying organization working for us. So I get summaries as soon as they're over. In fact, we were thrilled up here. The Bay Area counties have decided to allow construction to resume. So
I saw that.
We're very, very happy.
Yes, I thought Shel must be thrilled.
Our argument has been that we know how to work safely. We undertake projects all the time with new conditions that require us to come up with new safety protocols. Safety is, you know, I know it sounds like hyperbole, but it's our top priority. And yeah, we were figuring out coronavirus safety protocols before the lockdown even started because we didn't want people to get sick. So, you know, and there are thousands of projects across the state that have been proceeding. LA has not had a ban on construction. Up here where there has been a ban, there have been essential projects that have been allowed to go forward. So everything from home building to residential high rises to public works projects to road work, not one case emerging out of any of those because they know how to be safe. So, you know, why not? I mean, there's so much in the supply chain where people can get back to work, from the food trucks that show up at lunch to the people who come and clean the trailers where the engineers sit. You know, you want to get the economy going again, do it where there's not a risk.
My wife works in the film industry, and the film is, she tells me that a lot of the social distancing things will never happen or would be difficult to happen. Not just the filming itself, but the, the participants that are involved.
Yeah, that would not be fun to watch, the quick cuts to people who are 6 feet apart.
So SNL did a skit about that just before, I think before they realized that was actually going to happen.
Yep. I thought SNL's done a great job of figuring out how to be creative with everybody doing their bits from their own home.
The second one was much better. I think
they had learned a lot from the first one, I think.
Absolutely. It was clear.
Yeah. Probably why they did a second one. I think they originally had planned only one, but they probably, when the first one was over, going, now we know how to do this right, let's do another. So.
I think, to the point, I think there are a lot of places that are going to have a challenging time trying to figure out how to, exist in this new world order of social distancing and those kinds of things, assuming that we do need to continue them for an extended period of time. Higher education, for example, is the prime example. It's very difficult to keep students socially distanced on a college campus.
Right.
No matter what rules you may put in place and come up with, they're not going to pay attention anyway. So I know a lot of the folks in higher ed that I've been speaking with lately are really wrestling with that and trying to figure out how they can open responsibly in the fall, knowing that no matter what rules they put in place, it's difficult to enforce.
Like listening to the interviews of the kids on spring break in Florida, just dismissing any of the risk.
Well, sure. I mean, but even basic things like living in a dorm. I mean, It's impossible to be socially distanced in a college dorm. I know some universities are looking at trying to acquire apartment space nearby to campus to expand it, but you still you'd never be able to.
Yes, but nobody could acquire apartment space nearby to campus anyway. I mean, I'm old now, but I remember being a student.
But it's also, I mean, I will say, so the summer camp that my kids go to, it's an overnight camp. And I help with them. I do some volunteering on their communications. And we were talking about like, what would it take to be open for summer camp? And the days were kind of fine. Like they can keep to groups of 10 and they can do, but then it got really tricky once you figured out, what do you do in the bathrooms? Where do they eat? Because the mess hall is crammed in. If you cut everybody by half, not only was there an economic issue that you needed a certain number of kids to make it economically viable, but the final thing was when we figured it all out, and then you half the number of kids in the all this stuff, they would say, is that the experience we want for summer camp? Is that if we did that all right, now what's that experience like? Right. And then it kind of was like, okay, I think that makes our decision, right? There it is. And so that's what's been, even if you can follow, and for my own office, so we are 9 people. We've never worked remote. We went remote 6 weeks ago. And even as we talk about it now, I'm like, if I have to do any of these things, we're not going back. I'll wait till the fall. Like
the military is the very definition of cramped. And I can't imagine what they're going through nowadays. You can't really keep recruits 6 feet apart all the time. And then you got communal showers, communal bathrooms.
Well, look what happened on Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah, the ships, it's just impossible.
Actually, 60 Minutes had a segment on this last Sunday night, and they actually walked through what they're doing with recruits now to have social distancing and those kinds of things. It was an interesting segment. They looked not just at recruits, but at all aspects of the military and what they can and can't do. But it certainly is much more challenging than in other parts of society.
Yes, although I suppose one advantage you have is that you are working with a group of people who are accustomed to obeying orders.
True. Much different than college students.
Yes,
who are used to
unlike
ignoring
college students. It's
college kids and the campers. Yes,
right. My massage therapist, who I have not seen for a while, of course, has a son who serves on a submarine. And obviously, when they're in the sub, they're in very tight quarters. But you learn that absolutely all the safety is critical. And at that time when they were on shore, they were basically, they were in small apartments, and they were supposed to stay there and go to a very few designated places. And they weren't having a problem with it because if you spend most of your time at a submarine, a tiny apartment is pretty spacious.
So one other thing that I saw, we were talking about, learning another language while this is going on. I read that the hobbyist magazines have just blown up during this, and food magazines, cooking. It struck me that there's
flour cannot be had. I can't find any.
Find any what?
Flour, baking flour.
Oh yeah, you go into the store and that stuff is just cleaned out.
The sourdough cracks me up. Everybody's with the sourdough starter. And I actually did that. I started my sourdough and I made a couple of loaves, and then I realized I don't really like sourdough. I ended up throwing it away. I was like,
well, that's a
San Francisco.
I remember seeing Bodine's. They still use the original. I don't know, what is that called? The sourdough.
Original starter. The original starter shell.
Yeah. But
I just don't like it enough to be feeding it every day and naming it and whatever else I'm supposed to do with my sourdough. So I called it quits.
There's got to be an opportunity here for brands that are doing advertising that all looks the same. I think from a marketing standpoint, it's helping people, right? Can you help people while the time away with a hobby that is somehow related to what your company does?
I
have to tell you, one of the most popular channels, we set up a Microsoft team where I work for non-work related community, get employees engaging with each other who don't work for the same department. And the recipe channel is the one that has just gone crazy. And not just people sharing the recipes, but people taking pictures of what they made with the recipe that a colleague shared.
Well, if you don't take a picture, did it happen?
Right.
That's right.
I mean, but Hey, Adele, I made your banana bread. Look.
Hey, other Shel, it looks like you've been trying to talk a little bit there, but we keep not really hearing you. You're very quiet.
Have never been able to not interrupt so profoundly as I have in this hour.
Well, I know, it's shocking to me, but your volume level is really very, very low, and I think that's the problem. So you're not really interrupting us.
Try it again.
All my settings have been on full blast, and
Are you sure it's using the microphone that's near you and not one that's on the other side of the room?
I'm using the microphone that's in my computer.
Oh, well.
Always use. This is my third conversation. Everybody else heard me fine.
Yeah.
I think it's the other Shel getting revenge on me.
Yeah, I can control your volume from here. That's one of the things. You see, I can turn your volume. I can mute you, but I can't control your volume.
What I've been trying to say a few times is the bad ads on television for cars which we are not using is an example of how economics and culturally will change. You brought in Saturday Night Live, which is an example of what happens. We're all doing something, most of us, this is the first time we've had this kind of separation. And for me, I've been in a home office for 20 years, so I'm used to Zoom. It's the way I talk to people all the time. And I find what I really miss is those face-to-face meetings that I keep having, or those dinners with people like Shel Holtz that I used to have. They're all gone. So
you mean JD, huh?
I think you have, yeah, but I think you have a situation where the auto industry, they're getting really, really killed right now. My heart doesn't go out to them, but what do they know how to do when sales are down? They're used to advertising. They're saying you never had a better chance to buy a car than now. They're about to go into a new season, new products. They got to clear thousands and thousands of cars out between now and the fall season. What do? They go onto television.
And it's not just the advertising. I saw a post on Facebook from Jerry Stevenson. I don't know if any of you know Jerry. He's an intranet manager. I've known Jerry since the early days of intranets. But he said, I bought a new car. This is a great time to buy a new car. They're dealing like you couldn't believe. And he bought a 1-year-old Lexus for like 34 grand. He said would have cost him about $5 grand more if he had done it during normal times. So I think,
and I guess that's the point. He can say that, right?
Yep.
Like and that's even when we talk about coming out of this on the other end with the community bankers. Like, I'm getting a little cranky with the community bankers that keep posting the graphics that say, we did this many PPP loans and this much money, because it's a little braggy, and there are a lot of businesses that didn't get them. But at the end of this, if we have testimonials from customers who are like, they were there when I needed them, like, I'm on board with that. So it's, and the thing on the, maybe to your point, Shel, the car companies, instead of selling cars, because we assume you can buy a car from them. I know that, but maybe, yes, show me how I should take this chance to clean out your car and make sure it looks great. Or
wouldn't you like to learn to change your own oil? Now's the time to learn that.
How do you change your tire? How do you,
Actually, no, it's not a thing I aspire to.
That's the point.
It won't appeal to everybody.
However, I would not object to seeing something about, something saying, hey, if you'd like to learn this, if you'd like to do some of this.
Yeah, now would be the time.
I think some of it is, if you're in the financial position that the auto industry is in, or that a number of industries, when that stress is on you, it's hard to be creative. Some people respond to stress pretty immediately with creativity. But for a lot of us, and I felt this happening even though a lot of my lifestyle hadn't shifted, for a couple of weeks there, it was just like very hard to access any level of creativity because there was all this stuff flying at me. And so I think it's maybe not surprising if they fall back on what they've always done, at least initially, but it isn't serving them.
No. It might be a time to lean on influencers. Hey, Shel, it's interesting. After you've been talking for a few seconds, the volume increases. I don't know if that's just a feature of your laptop, but
I suspect you, Shel. But picture
We
sure, blame the
vertical
Jew.
and the horizontal.
Suffering marketing communications people at the automakers. They got somebody down the hall who's a higher pay grade saying, I don't care what you do. You got to do it now. Do something. And they sit around and say, what do we do? Well, roll out the ads we used last summer. Because they don't have time. They don't really have any culture that says, don't do what you've always done. They haven't been taught to be creative. They've taught to use best practices and everything they've always done. And now comes along a disruptive incident that is changing everything in ways that I don't know how, but I am sure it's like 9/11. It didn't end up changing everything as everybody kept saying, but it did change some things. It changed how we used airplanes. It changed how suspicious we were of people who sat next to us on airplanes, and so on down the line. And it takes years to look back and say, oh, before that, we didn't do this. Right now, I have my wife, she's learned a new verb. She learned the verb Zoom. I'll Zoom you. She had never used it before. She's in education, and they go into classes, and now they're talking online, and it's new to all of them, and her volume works just fine, by the way.
She had a better laptop than you.
But I'm really interested from a cultural and a business point of view. What has happened that when we go through the envelope and life goes back to whatever weirdness, I'm in California, as most of you are, we're used to a normal which is weird for the rest of the world. But how does it change? What is different? What are the economic opportunities? You know, suburban malls that have anchor stores like Sears and Penny's, they're dead, but that was going to happen anyway. But what happens to that land? Are we going to have new housing? Will it be for the poor or the rich? You know, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, and I'm coming up with no answers. So I was looking to you guys to help me so I could be brilliant.
So I think it's still too soon to tell, though, because a lot of that depends on how deep and how long this goes. If we truly are, you know, on the other side, at least at the start of it, and we can kind of keep things under control and gradually get back without any major hiccups, that's one scenario. Second scenario is there is a second wave, or, you know, something like that, and that changes the dynamic entirely, particularly as far as how long things last, because the longer we adopt these habits and the longer we go through the suffering economically, the more likely there are to be long-term changes.
And I think also, you know, I've read a number of pieces to talk about the fact that we are at risk of more pandemics, not fewer these days. I was on I think I mentioned on an earlier one of these chats that I was on a Zoom call with risk managers. And they were saying, this isn't the big one, folks. The big one is going to have a 40% mortality rate, not a 2% mortality rate. And it's coming. And we should be using this to prepare society. I mean, look at the fact that we didn't have enough ventilators. We didn't have enough hospital beds. There's not inventory sitting empty because that's not profitable. And is profit going to be the key motivator going forward? I fear that it will. And that when the next one comes along, we'll be pretty much in the same boat we were with this one, and the consequences will be far more dire.
Right, and we don't have, you know, the manufacturing capacity for medications or medical supplies or vaccines, and that you know, those may be that there may be some stuff that needs onshoring, and you know, it's kind of an interesting turn that certain people are in office because of talking about, you know, bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. and or you know, and yet, you know, it does seem that some of that needs to happen. It's not going to look like it did.
Shel, I'm going to let Shel have the last word. I do have a top of the hour thing that I have to do. So Shel, you were going to say?
I just wanted to interject that the next pandemic, which I've seen the same statistics, we're going to have much more experience because of this pandemic, and we're going to have systems in place to stop the spread faster. We are going to, there's 3 tiers here. There's avoid. When you can't avoid, you stop the spread. And then you get into the 3rd one, which in America is going to be the really controversial part. That's the recovery phase.
Right. But if the next pandemic is 10 years down the road, will we have the institutional memory, as it were?
We had the institutional memory from the SARS of 2003, so that the Obama administration stockpiled all this stuff that somehow or other disappeared, got squandered, got trashed. No one seems to know what happened to it, but there had been preparations for this, that all the practices we're doing are global practices because they haven't thought out before, but nobody believed it. Nobody was educated. Nobody knew who was in charge. And next time, I believe we will do better at it. Unfortunately, I do believe there will be a next time.
Bill, you wanted to say something, and then I have to stop this. You're muted.
I just wanted to say that your reading assignment for the next week is On the Beach by Neville Shute, and just interpret the nuclear holocaust as the pandemic.
There you go. All right. Everyone knows I record these and post them, right? So this will be up probably tomorrow or Saturday. We'll be back at the same time next week. I love these, so I hope you're all able to join us again. Thanks very much.
This was great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.